We are jumping right into a really heavy but essential topic today. We're going to be focusing on a critical moment in Asian history.
Right.
We're talking about the aggressive expansion of Japan in the early 20th century, and specifically the devastating capture of Nanking in 1937.
And this is a moment that really defined the start of the Second Sino-Japanese War.
Exactly.
For you to really get this, we need to go deeper than just, listing dates and events. Our mission here is to look at the strategic reasons behind the conflict, to unpack the huge humanitarian disaster that happened, and to understand the long-term impact of the violence in the Chinese capital.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning with motivation. Why would an island nation like Japan launch such a huge, aggressive, and costly expansion?
Well, the short answer is resources. But the real story is how that need for resources got connected to military power.
Oh.
Japan was modernizing really fast in the early 20th century. I mean, it was industrializing.
Mhm.
And to fuel all those factories, they needed raw materials they just didn't have.
Specifically coal and iron ore.
Coal and high-quality iron ore, exactly. They had almost none on their home islands.
So how did the military leadership take that economic need and turn it into a reason for war?
The military elite, they had this belief that national strength and controlling territory were the same thing. They saw military dominance over resource-rich lands as the only way to guarantee Japan's future, both its security and its economy.
And China was the obvious target?
It was right there. It was huge. And it had the mineral wealth Japan was desperate for. This wasn't about setting up trade deals. It was about outright physical control.
And this wasn't a sudden idea in 1937, right? They had been building up to this for years.
Oh, absolutely. By 1937, they'd already shown their hand. Japan had annexed Korea and taken control of Manchuria.
Which they renamed Manchukuo.
Exactly. And those earlier conquests were crucial. They allowed the Japanese military to practice, to perfect the logistics of moving huge numbers of troops over water and land. They used their modern Navy and Air Force to basically redraw the map of Asia long before the full-scale war even began.
So if they already had a foothold, what was the specific spark? What turned this regional pressure into an all-out war?
That trigger, it came in July 1937. It's known as the Marco Polo Bridge Incident.
Near Beijing.
Right. It was actually a pretty minor skirmish between Japanese and Chinese troops,
Yep.
but the Japanese army used it as an immediate excuse to launch a massive, full-scale invasion, much deeper into China than they'd ever gone before.
And Chinese forces tried to defend their territory, obviously, but there was a major technology gap, wasn't there?
It was devastatingly one-sided. The Chinese armies, they fought very fiercely, but they were just outmatched by modern artillery, by air support, and by mechanized transport.
And that tech difference allowed the Japanese to move incredibly fast.
Shockingly fast. They captured major coastal cities like Shanghai very quickly before turning their sights inland, right toward the Yangtze River.
And it's important for you to remember this is all happening while tensions are rising in Europe, but this was its own major war.
It's so crucial to see that. It started separately, but this conflict eventually became the main theater of World War II in the Pacific. And on the ground, the human cost was immediate and catastrophic.
Millions of refugees.
Millions of Chinese civilians had to flee their homes. They became refugees in their own country, just trying to escape the path of the advancing army.
And that path led the Japanese army straight to Nanking. To really understand what happened next, we have to talk about why Nanking was so important.
Nanking had this immense symbolic weight. At the time, it was the capital city of the Republic of China.
Under General Chiang Kai-shek.
That's right. So for the Japanese, capturing the capital, the seat of government, wasn't just a military goal. They believed it would completely break the spirit of the Chinese people and force a quick surrender.
And beyond the symbolism, its location was strategically vital, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It's right on the Yangtze River, which made it a massive hub for trade and transportation. It controlled key inland waterways.
So taking it would paralyze the country's logistics.
Exactly. The Japanese figured that if they took the capital and cut those supply lines, Chinese resistance would just shatter.
Now, the city did have defenses, these huge ancient stone walls, but the leadership's final decision kind of shows what they were up against.
Yeah, General Chiang Kai-shek saw the writing on the wall. He made a very pragmatic, though probably demoralizing decision. He moved the official government offices further inland.
To Chongqing.
In Chongqing, yeah, temporary capital. It was a move to ensure the government could keep running, even if Nanking itself fell.
But a lot of soldiers stayed behind to defend it. because losing Nanking, the historic heart of the Republic, was still a huge psychological blow.
A profound defeat for morale, yes.
So let's talk about the advance on the city. It wasn't just a straight march.
No, it was very carefully planned and carried out with extreme severity. The Japanese army moved in multiple columns to encircle the city. Along the way, they destroyed villages, farmland, infrastructure, anything to block escape routes and deny resources to the defenders.
And they didn't just use ground troops.
No, their air force was key. They ran continuous bombing raids on the city before the main assault even began.
What was the goal there?
To soften up those ancient stone defenses, for one,
Yeah.
and also to spread terror and chaos among the civilians.
Which created immediate desperation. You have stories of roads just clogged with refugees, hundreds of thousands of people trying to flee with whatever they could carry.
And for many, the Yangtze River was their last desperate hope. People piled onto any boat they could find, no matter how small or unsafe, just trying to get across that wide river to safety.
The final assault came in mid-December 1937.
Right, and the Chinese defenders, as brave as they were basically out of time. They were running out of ammunition, medical supplies, food, everything.
So that's when the heavy artillery comes in.
Yes, the Japanese brought up their heavy guns and just blasted massive holes through the thick city gates. Once those walls were breached, the defenses collapsed very, very quickly.
And thousands of Japanese soldiers pour into the city. The key thing here is that the Chinese military command just broke down.
Total chaos. Many Chinese soldiers threw away their uniforms and tried to just disappear into the civilian population.
So on December 13th, 1937, the Japanese army has full control of Nanking.
That's the date of the official military capture. But tragically, it was really just the beginning of a truly dark and horrific period for everyone left in the city.
And this is where the story shifts from a military capture to a period of sustained violence. The next 6 weeks are known as the Rape of Nanking.
It's a sobering reality. As soon as they took the city, Japanese soldiers began to systematically ignore the established international rules of war. Their actions were just. They were indiscriminate. They targeted surrendered soldiers and unarmed civilians alike.
And it seems like there was no effort from the commanders to stop it.
That's a critical point. There was a shocking lack of command and control to enforce any kind of discipline. Some historians argue this was almost intentional. The military had outrun its supply lines, so units were acting on their own.
And this was combined with an ideology that viewed surrender as dishonorable.
Exactly. It created an environment where the complete dehumanization of the enemy, both soldiers and civilians, was allowed to run wild.
The specific acts against civilians were just horrific. We have so many documented cases of soldiers breaking into homes, looting everything.
Valuables, food, money. And then they would often set the buildings on fire, destroying huge parts of the city and trapping people inside.
The violence targeted everyone. Men of military age were rounded up and executed in large groups.
Whether they were actual soldiers or not, they were killed by machine guns, bayonets, and the documentation of the extreme brutality and sexual violence against women and children is extensive and deeply disturbing.
With violence on that scale, the death toll must be staggering.
The historical consensus now estimates that between 200,000 and 300,000 people were killed.
In just 6 weeks.
In just 6 weeks. That number includes both surrendered soldiers and ordinary citizens. And the aftermath was unspeakable. Bodies were left in the streets or just thrown into the Yangtze River. The scale of the loss of life scarred that entire region for generations.
In the middle of all this darkness, though, there was this small group of foreigners who stayed in the city and tried to create a safe haven.
That's right, the Nanking Safety Zone. It was a small area, only about 2 square miles, right in the city center. This incredible humanitarian effort was led by a small committee, headed by a German businessman named John Rabe.
Which is pretty remarkable considering Germany was allied with Japan.
It is. He used his position to try to push back. And the zone itself was cleverly designed. It included places like the American Embassy, universities, and hospitals places with some diplomatic protection. They marked the borders with flags from neutral countries, just hoping the soldiers would respect them.
And this tiny area became a refuge for hundreds of thousands.
It did. People crowded into any space they could find. Now, the zone wasn't perfectly safe. The violence often spilled over the boundaries, but the committee worked nonstop to find food and provide medical care. Their work is credited with saving many, many thousands of lives.
So how did news of this get out to the rest of the world? It wasn't completely hidden.
No, reports slowly trickled out. They came from letters and photos that were snuggled out by journalists, missionaries, and embassy staff, the same people running the safety zone.
And the reaction.
People in countries like the U.S. and Great Britain were just profoundly horrified by the accounts of systematic violence against civilians.
How did the Japanese government respond to the international outrage?
They immediately started a campaign of denial. They claimed the reports were fake or wildly
Okay,
exaggerated.
the damage was done.
It was. Foreign governments sent official protests, but the war kept going. However, this event was a major turning point. It permanently turned international public opinion against Japan's military expansion.
And for the people of Nanking, the suffering didn't end after those 6 weeks.
No. The city was under Japanese occupation until 1945. They installed a new local government that was loyal to them. For the survivors, life for the next 8 years meant severe hardship and constant military oversight.
So, looking at it today, what is the ultimate legacy of Nanking?
Well, the events are a key part of history lessons all over the world. In Nanking itself, there is a huge, very sobering memorial museum to honor the victims. People gather there every year to make sure this history is never forgotten.
And for students studying
I
this,
think studying this helps us understand why international humanitarian laws, the rules of war, are so critically important. It shows the profound and lasting consequences when military power operates without any regard for human life.
the history of Nanking stands as this powerful reminder of what happens when military actions disregard human rights. And understanding that is crucial for seeing how global conflicts like the Second World War unfolded. So the question we're left with is this: how do the international rules designed to prevent these atrocities actually work when they're faced with official denial and a complete breakdown of command on the battlefield? That's something for you to think about. Good luck with your studies.